Hello. Thank you, Jonathan. Hello, everyone. Um, I just published an article this week chronicling my adventure with the Free Plays project and what I learned from it and what I experienced. And yes, that is a printer going off beside me because I live in a working household. And that's a great actually segue into where the story begins. So a few months back, I was living in Louisville. My son's school had just reverted to fully online due to COVID-19 restrictions. And now all of us, me, my wife, my mother-in-law, my then 7-year-old, and brand new baby were inside. And as the theaters began to request short, quote-unquote, Zoom-ready plays that could be performed and shared online, this paradigm fell away, and my family became my development team. In April, I wrote a piece for the Kennedy Center's Play at Home program, and my play, A Dinner Theater, was literally workshopped around the dinner table with the family. In the years of overlap between growing my family and working as a playwright, I had never worked like this before, and it was powerful. It truly felt like the family business. After the triple blows of the deaths of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, when the protests began and the Black Lives Matter signs began to sprout, so did the questions from my older son. Watching them, as you can imagine, trying to explain these events to a child, watching their energy shift, watching them deflate, is a parenting experience that no one can really prepare you for. And so I believed, however, that through the arts, we could try and make the conversation easier. Never easy, but perhaps easier. And somewhere between these dual pandemics, a light bulb went off. People needed plays that were relevant, timely, but most importantly, accessible. And they needed them right now. Not after an exhaustive multi-year new play development step in the often glacial process of theater production. Necessary sometimes, but certainly slow. So I took action. And I contacted Jonathan Schmidt-Chapman, the executive director of Theater of Young Audiences USA, who you just heard from. And I said, I want to write some short plays for anyone with Wi-Fi to download. And the rules would be simple. Anyone, teacher, student, child, adult, would have my full-throated blessing to do what they wished with the plays, whether it be an educational performance, creating a new ensemble, or gathering a family around the kitchen table. And per usual, Jonathan offered his full support. And as luck would have it, the team at New Victory Theater were already developing programming to coincide with the observance of Juneteenth. And thus we were up and running, and Free Play Open Source Scripts for an Anti-Racist Tomorrow was born. Now, in the 6 months since we released Free Play, the plays have been presented by entities ranging from Dallas Children's Theater, who you'll hear from today, to the Young People's Theater in Toronto, to the Educational Division of Healthcare Provider Kaiser Permanente, who you'll also hear from today. The scripts have been downloaded in 48 states, 64 countries, the subject of 20 articles, and featured in 21 performances across the country. Many academic institutions have found use for them as well, and brand new social justice theater collectives and partnerships have been founded and created to perform these plays. Given this, I thought it would be a good time to check in on the impact of the project, as well as the possibilities for open source storytelling in the future. But we have to start with interrogating how we think about the success, quote unquote, or the impact for a project like Free Play. In the traditional theater context, an evaluation or impact report can have a pernicious connotation, a long history of some outsider to the process assessing work through the lens of a regional theater model, which centers the interests of a subscriber audience and prioritizes the comfort of the board or paying audience. And let's be honest, that system doesn't work at the best of times. And on a basic level, it has no way to serve us in our basic creative needs right now. With this in mind, when it comes to assessing the impact of Free Play, I'm asking questions in the spirit of participatory practice, like, what are the ways we can say that Free Play is having an impact and that there is a need for this work? And what are the different communities that have found this work useful? And what are the new opportunities, collaborations, or changes that folks have had because of it? And as a result of asking new questions, we're discovering new ways that we can think about, collect, and analyze impact data in the form of dialogue, testimonials, mental health value, and new collectives formed. One thing I've realized by releasing Free Play is that the open source distribution model facilitates a fundamental redistribution of power and ownership. that puts the work back in the hands of the people who gain the most from it. Because the scripts are free to the public, in its most basic form, free play belongs to everybody. And that makes the idea of who is a stakeholder bigger than just a director, subscriber base, actor, etc., to the point that we're talking about humanity. If everyone is a stakeholder in a project, this will also change how we think about returns and the directness of the relationship between playwright and community. To me, as the playwright, an open source model doesn't only mean the scripts are available to anyone with Wi-Fi to download or perform. It means that my return on this project is different from a traditional financial return, definition of success, or any scenarios that might happen if I write a play for a theater. I am in a lineage that goes back to Phyllis Wheatley and Harriet Jacobs, Black writers responding to the both age-old and the right-now struggles of being Black in America. I am in the lineage of writers seeking to expand upon the dominant cultural narrative and the attempts of erasure of Black folks from the American story. As long as there still is a collective feeling of anxiety, fear, and trauma among us, it will show up in our art. And we don't have time to get into the politics and the complexities of Black artists being platformed by non-Black institutions and organizations. That being said, free play is purposefully designed to remove as many sorts of access barriers as possible. My career has taken me a lot of places that I value. My story extends to creative, educational, and community-based families all across the country. But there's something about this work that feels like returning to the fundamentals with more knowledge and a bigger network, a way of being in dialogue with all these experiences and the needs of all my extended communities and saying, here's something for you all, I hope you can use it. Ultimately, what I've learned from free play is that we still have so much more to learn about the possibilities that open source storytelling holds for the future. It's clear from our impact gathering process that this type of work harnesses massive potential to bring people together, expand how we think about performance, and make theater happen outside of the regional theater model. And we're at the beginning of that exploration. And so, in the spirit of that exploration, that is why today is happening.